May I have the elector, please? Sorry. Mr. Speaker, it is well known that the opposition does not support this legislation. Such a far-reaching political maneuver as to cast aside Portmore's special status as Jamaica's only city municipality and convert it into a parish ought to emanate from the people who it directly affects. It is the people of Portmore who should decide which way they wish to go. Instead, the process of consultation with the people of Portmore leading up to this point was mere political window dressing. The call for the people of Portmore to decide their future via a referendum, which has been made by this side, has been ignored. Instead, this government is ramming this legislation down their throats. Mr. Speaker, if this legislation becomes law, it will deprive the residents of Portmore of their important rights of democratic participation to directly elect their mayor and for their citizens' associations to have rights of audience on their city council. Those rights for which the people of Portmore had advocated and were granted by law are unique in Jamaica and represent the high point of democratic innovation in local governance. It is a deplorable travesty and an aberration for those democratic rights of the people of Portmore to be removed without their consent or approval by this government abusing its parliamentary majority. Mr. Speaker, the two current mayors of Portmore and St. Catherine were both duly elected in February last year, less than a year ago, in fact. One directly by the people in Portmore, and the other by the elected local representatives of the people in St. Catherine. They both hold office as an expression of the democratic will of the people. This bill will destroy the expressed will of the people. It will remove the mayor of Portmore, who was chosen democratically by the residents of Portmore, and it will also result in the much reduced parish of St. Catherine suddenly having a majority of JLP councillors so that they can remove the current elected mayor and install one of their own. That is the effect of this legislation. Mr. Speaker, it is a deplorable travesty and an aberration for this government to abuse its parliamentary majority to negate the will of the people and remove their duly elected representatives from critical leadership positions that they now hold. This bill violates the people's choice last year. We reject the abuse of Parliament to reverse the will of the people as expressed through free and fair elections. It is wrong, and we call on Jamaica to stand up against it. As my colleague, Mr. Speaker, as my colleague, Member of Parliament for South St. Catherine has said, this legislation is gerrymandering legislation. What is gerrymandering? It means shifting up electoral boundaries to keep your supporters in and or to move the other side supporters out. And that is exactly what is happening here. The principal objective of this legislation is to recast existing constituency boundaries of 2 seats to provide a political advantage to the Jamaica Labour Party. That member
rise on a point of order, Mr. Speaker. The bill that was tabled, and I opened the debate, and we are debating, in that bill includes no provisions about removal of political boundaries. Mr. Speaker, the member is misleading the House. This Parliament, Mr. Speaker, cannot alter or create political boundaries. We are creating a parish boundary, Mr. Speaker. We are creating a parish. And they must stop, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has made that point repeatedly, and it is disingenuous. Under our constitution, constituencies cannot straddle parish boundaries. And when you configure parish boundaries, as this bill does, running through the middle of existing constituencies, you are ipso facto reconfiguring the constituency boundaries. Stop deceiving the people. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Mr. Speaker, I repeat, the principal objective of this legislation is to recast the existing constituency boundaries of 2 seats to provide a political advantage to the JLP. This is flagrant gerrymandering and is an abuse of the democratic process of this parliament. Mr. Speaker, this bill creates new parish boundaries that are not aligned with the current constituency boundaries in East Central St. Catherine and South St. Catherine, 2 seats. This departs from a decision that had already been agreed by both sides for the boundaries of the city municipality of Portmore to be aligned with the boundaries of the 3 constituencies that together comprise Portmore. The government departing from that position without the input or approval of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica is thereby departing from the convention that electoral boundary adjustments are to emanate from the consensus within the ECJ and then accepted by Parliament without debate or demur. Mr. Speaker, the convention that decisions on political boundaries are shifted away from the governing party of the day and instead vested in a well-structured specialist entity, formerly called the Electoral Advisory Committee, and now, under law, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, has been an important contributor to the elimination of the scourge of political violence that had plagued Jamaica for decades and culminated in nearly 1,000 Jamaicans being killed in the lead up to the 1980 general elections. Mr. Speaker, Jamaica has come to be admired internationally for having developed a homegrown model for dealing with these politically sensitive issues via that well-designed structure that ensures expertise, independence, and consensus, and thereby reduces tensions and mitigates the risks of political violence. To depart from this convention will create a highly undesirable and unnecessary political schism, taking the country back to conditions from which Jamaica had happily departed and should never return. So, Mr. Speaker, we say shame on this JLP administration for taking Jamaica's political practice back to those dark days from whence we came. We absolutely abhor this flagrant violation of the well-established convention that has saved Jamaica so well since the 1980s. We abhor the emasculation of the central role of the Electoral Commission of Jamaica in setting constituency and divisional boundaries so that the government of the day cannot do precisely what this government is intent on doing here. The parish boundary for Portmore will run through East Central St. Catherine and run through South St. Catherine, excluding from the parish of Portmore several communities that are now part of those constituencies. Those communities will be politically marooned, no longer represented by their current elected MPs, but not represented by any other MPs either. So clearly, a major realignment of constituency boundaries will be required. That is the effect of this legislation. And Mr. Speaker, for this sensitive process to be preempted by the JLP government pushing through this bill for political advantage is a backward and retrograde step. And we strongly object to it, and we will not support it. Mr. Speaker, Portmore has developed into a major residential and commercial centre. It was not developed as a parish. There is no discernible benefit that this legislation brings to the people of Portmore. They have not presented one tangible benefit to the people from this scheme of theirs. As a parish, Portmore will lack many of the facilities and amenities that parishes customarily enjoy. Many. It has no public hospital, no cemetery, no market, no parish court, and so on. The people of Portmore will continue to rely on St. Catherine and elsewhere for those amenities and facilities. This is legislation of form over substance, and its primary objective is political. It has nothing to do with improving the lives of the people of Portmore. Oh no, it is entirely for the political benefit of the Jamaica Labour Party. Mr. Speaker, what is happening here today cannot be supported. We will vote against it, and we will do whatever is in our lawful power to resist its implementation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.